we go.
Okay,
60-40
there's my
strategy.
slides. Want to get into it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, testing the 60-40 option or a 60-40 equity trading strategy with options. This is from God. If you want to follow him on Twitter, but the idea is that we're testing the classic 60-40, not taxes, but the stocks for growth, bonds for cushion, that ratio. That's traditionally with the equities investing. The idea being that bonds can kind of like offset some of that volatility that the equities will experience and offer some directional cushion as well. When the equities go up, bonds tends to go down, right? We had that like negative correlation historically. So we wanted to test if that held up. And as we're going to find out, and as you guys have probably already noticed, that relationship has really kind of started to break down more in the last couple of years. So what we're going to be testing here is 16 delta SPY strangles on both, taking directional assumptions out of it, just looking at neutral strategies, 45 DTE managed at 21 days. We're going to be looking at the rolling correlations between these as well, the price correlations. And we're going to see when the hedging works versus when it fails. An important thing to note here is that while you can use underlying diversification to directionally hedge against the price movements of your underlyings, options have a bunch of other parameters. So even though your prices may not be correlated, some of those other parameters might be correlated. And IV is typically correlated even when the prices are not, although it certainly depends. And what we're really testing here is like for this, income generating strategy, will this diversification between SPY and bonds make a meaningful difference? Make sense?
Makes sense.
It does. It does.
Cool. So let's get into it. So yep, we're looking at, first of all, the rolling correlation between stocks and bonds, or between ETFs and bonds. We're looking at SPY here to kind of represent sort of like high cap stocks in the United States. And then what we see here is that, from 2021, that relationship has really fluctuated, but especially like in 2026, we're seeing like new peaks with regards to the correlation, where now bonds and stocks are starting to move together more often than historically. And just note here that the colors here are flipped because we're going red to show that more correlated here, just because like that's something you typically do not want when you're trying to use something for diversification. But we're actually at, like almost 5-year peaks for that correlation. So while, traditionally we'd use bonds to hedge against the directional movements of the market, we're actually seeing them move together a lot more often now, where about 97% of the days in 2026 were positively correlated between these two when we're looking at price returns.
Yeah, it's been crazy. And when you first brought this up, I had a question that I'll save to the end, but I had a feeling that this was the case where you have these correlations that, and this happens all the time. This is why correlations are not perfect 1 or -1. It's because you have these scenarios where things can fall out of whack. And I think it's interesting when they do.
It is interesting when they do. And it goes to show you that like diversification, especially, like when you're using price diversification as your primary source of diversification, it's an active thing. You kind of actively have to be looking at like what these correlations are looking like and understanding how to, adjust portfolio weights over time to get the exposure that you want. Because we see this with metals, we see this with bonds, that like these correlations really fluctuate. And sometimes they can become even more correlated or more inversely correlated. And you have to make adjustments, periodically because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's take a look at actually my favorite year to trade, which was 2022. But that's when we saw a lot of stuff break. A lot of stuff broke in 2022. But something that really did break is where we saw like bonds actually contracted. Their prices contracted more than the S&P 500, down 31% during that like year period, basically, where the market was only down 20% in that bear market. So the hedge didn't just fail, but it actually would have created, like, at least from like a long-term P&L perspective, exaggerated gain or exaggerated losses throughout that period. A lot of stuff broke during that time. It's an interesting time to look at, just a more recent bear market compared to 2008. But one really worth noting, and I personally liked trading during this period. I don't know if you guys did as well.
I mean, I can't believe you doubled down on that. You really mean that? That's a trip to me. I hated that year. Are you kidding me?
I love that year.
It was terrible. Oh God.
I like that.
But we did see a huge breakdown with this relationship between these two for sure. And it's honestly, I don't know if it's really fixed itself since.
I'm pretty positive this is the year where we saw the 10-year. No, we saw the 2-year go above the 10-year and invert.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, this is easy money. I'm just going to short the 2-year and on the 10-year. And then that lasted for about 2 years.
Yes, it did.
And I was just holding losses the whole time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. to the point of this exact segment, not everything is as it seems at all times.
Yeah. And another point as well is that like correlation is just kind of one metric that we're using, but like it's important to look at other ones because like the correlations between bonds and the S&P throughout 2022 were actually like a little bit more on the negative side, but that can still result in like long-term, like, similar trajectories long-term. So just again, being engaged, looking at a couple different metrics. But we can look at the next one, which I think is a very important lesson, which is looking at the IV correlation. So now that this is where options and equities trading really differs. And this is one of those variables that I was talking about, where even though prices might go in and out of being correlated, IVs tend to be correlated. Obviously depends on the asset, but just because you might have prices that are moving in a different direction, especially when there's like a large scale, like, sell off across the market or a bear market like we saw in 2022, those IVs can still be correlated, meaning that if you're trading short premium positions, the directional movements might be different, but you can take losses from compounding positions because of the IV correlation. And this is where like really the underlying diversification doesn't help you very much, but rather this is where sizing becomes really important and capping the overall capital allocated to short premium positions.
Very interesting. Yeah. I think this can be a future test in terms of if you see the spike and you just sold like a neutral strangle in each of them, as opposed to being directionally like straight up directional in them. That might be a more interesting way to play the same relationship if you had been training this relationship historically as like a directional thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the time we take direction out of it just because people have wildly different directional assumptions, and neutral kind of takes some of those variables out of it. So if we're just trying to test management, we're just trying to test profit targets, we'll usually use neutral, even though that's probably what not a lot of people were trading at the time necessarily. But it's just because we can't necessarily assume what someone was doing. But for something like this, especially when you're trying to get some like directional hedging and that being a part of it, we can look at more directional studies. But I think the punchline, so on the next slide, super interesting, is when we're actually now looking at these studies, these 16 delta strangles managed at 21 days, and noting here that these trades were put on every single day. So not representative of how someone would actually trade. But when we're looking at how those P&Ls accumulate over time, we're seeing that actually like the kind of 60-40 methodology, at least going back from 2021, did actually, that's that red line in the middle over there, create some dampened volatility in the cumulative P&Ls. So we're seeing moderate growth for the 60% SPY, 40% TLT. It performed right in the middle. So not as aggressive, not as volatile as all SPY, but not as, just like a little bit more performant compared to TLT. And then we're seeing what's really interesting when that hedging relationship kind of like really broke in 2022, or when that, what would you call it? Yeah, that correlation relationship kind of broke in 2022. All the portfolios actually still gained money over time, which that goes to show like that volatility relationship. When volatility goes up, even though prices are going down, and sometimes correlations are divergent, there's still opportunity there that for premium, for income generation strategies can be great to capitalize on. Potentially. Depends on the strategy, though.
I feel like this speaks to something Mike and I talk about all the time about not just implied volatility rank, but implied volatility, and how there's not, for TLT is something that like single digits is pretty typical for the implied volatility. Sometimes it gets up to 10, 11, 12, which it probably did in this year, the actual implied vol. So it didn't have a whole lot to fall even when the vol did come in, so to speak. I think that's kind of what this is saying here.
Basically, yeah.
Love it.
Cool. And then looking back again at 2022, when we look at just like the dollar of premium collected per unit of buying power, that when that relationship broke, that's actually when that ratio was the highest. Again, kind of speaking to that opportunity, speaking about how the options world is just so different from the equities world. But when we're looking at this principle specifically, when we're looking at income generation, 2022 just presented some really interesting circumstances. And then in 2026, all those lines are just starting to diverge a little bit, where they had historically been moving together. Just kind of a testament to how we're in kind of a weird market the last couple of months.
Yeah. And I think this brings me to the question that I was going to ask you. I don't know if you saw this, but there was another recent note that I saw on Twitter, I think, but it was like, if you had been long the NASDAQ, you would have made X over the last couple of years. But if you had been long in a 50-50 split, the NASDAQ and energy, that actually outperformed just being long NASDAQ, which is really interesting. And I wonder if that speaks to the difference here, like the breaking of this old hedge in recent years or recent months with energy products just ripping higher.
Yeah. Energy is a weird one because if you look at like XLE over time, I remember looking at this back in like, I think it was like 2024, maybe like 2023 or something. And XLE was just flat for like a decade, did nothing. And now we're starting to see it really pick up. And a lot of that is driven by, the growth in the tech sector, growth in the AI sector, all that kind of stuff. So maybe again, time to rethink some of these rules around investing, around hedging, around growth. Normally your market index would kind of account for that. If you're seeing a lot of growth in one sector and market caps are starting to, rise more, that would get reflected in your broad-based indices. But you don't always see that because of how, I don't want to say out of whack market caps have been, like valuations have been, but just something worth considering. But I think what's really interesting, kind of tying this more into what we're seeing now in the market, is that there's just been a real devaluation in bond products where that like TLT, like just like the dollar you have to put up in buying power for the amount of premium collected is really just kind of fallen off a cliff to these like kind of lows of over the past couple of years, where SPY and your market indices has kind of stayed more sustained. But doing that blended just to get some directional, like hedging, directional diversification, definitely performs better than just TLT.
Yeah.
With regards to this metric. So
yeah, TLT premium, even IV rank is down at 10 right now, but implied volatility in the single digits in July, almost in the single digits in August, September, all the way through here. Like the highest implied volatility we're seeing is 12. So to your point, there's not that much premium here in TLT.
It's kind of why I have a tough time trading bonds, because even when IVR is high, your IV index is like sometimes it's at like 15 or 18, right?
Yeah.
Compared to what you see in some other single company names. Like, and then when you do get a very big move in bonds, you get a big drop, you get a big spike because of how sensitive it is to, geopolitical factors and obviously like, other economic factors as well. Then you haven't collected very much because your IV index was low, but then you get a big move. So you kind of get the worst of both. But maybe I've just had horrible luck trading bonds. Someday I'll learn how to trade bonds properly. I just kind of stick with the indices or with the ETFs at the moment.
No, you nailed it. That's exactly it. That's one of the reasons why I don't trade bonds, because exactly that. Usually if the vol is going up, you're probably positioned wrong somehow and then exploding higher, especially if you're short vol. It's tough.
Yeah. But it's a whole world that I'm not in, just kind of like out on the outside listening to. So someday I'll get into bonds. I don't know when, but maybe it's just a me problem. But anyway, we can get to the takeaways. But this hedge has kind of been flipping. We're seeing this relationship between SPY and TLT, this correlation drifting, especially in the last couple of months. So now just looking at 2026, that the number, like the percentage of positive days between SPY and TLT has jumped from 28% to 97%. So while historically we would consider these to have like either like an inverse or a correlation of zero, we're seeing that relationship really shift. And that's very important when it comes to diversification, when it comes to being mindful about not doubling up on your risk. When it breaks pretty hard. In 2022 is a great example of this, where we saw bonds fall significantly more than the equities. And however, that can create opportunity when it comes to selling premium, when it comes to generating income. And a lot of this is around the relationship between IV. And this is where this kind of, trading style or what's important when you're trading equities really starts to differ when you're trading options. So we did see some of the benefits of diversification when we studied this, in the looking at the cumulative P&Ls over time, where having a mixture kind of created growth, but less volatile growth than just being in the indices. But kind of how we talked about, there are some other downsides to trading short premium on bonds that are very important to, be mindful of.
100%. And yeah, I think that for me, the takeaway here is if you're trading these things, it's tough to get a lot of premium in TLT. But I think the IV and the implied volatility spikes have been much more correlated in that sense.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But that could also just mean like maybe looking at metals, maybe looking at energy. Yeah. Like the goal with bonds has always been to put something in the equities portfolio that kind of moves differently, that moves sort of independently from the other assets in the portfolio to help with some of the, the P&L volatility that you experience long term. There are other assets that you can use for that and might be worth considering given how volatile and, how volatile bonds have been over the past couple of years.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Julia.
That's all I got.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.